So, as a close to our whole weekend theme on All In, our VBS is titled AI Lab. What does it stand for, kids? All in, living, above, and beyond. Wow, good job. Give them a big round of applause. So, it talks about all in living, living above and beyond. And Jesus, as he goes around doing miracles and talking in synagogues to different groups of people, and lots of people surround him and come to him, he stops them and he wants to tell them, what does it really mean to follow him? And here in this crucial passage, he unpacks for people what he means by that. So I've titled my sermon today as All in Living. What does it mean to go all in for Jesus? So we're going to look at 6 things today. We are going to see that all in living is for all people. All in living means leaving all. All in living means loving Jesus above all. All in living means trusting Jesus above all and in all. All in living means following Jesus in all, and all in living means transforming all. Living, loving, trusting, following, transforming. And all of these are embedded in this very short and succinct talk that Jesus gives to his disciples. And I want to really speak from my heart today on all of this, as this is something very core to us as a church as well. First of all, we read in Luke chapter 14, verse 25 and 26, it says, "Now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned to them and said to them, 'If anyone comes to me.'" So here's Jesus going around from town to town. He's actually on his way towards Jerusalem, and he's speaking in synagogues. Just before these, he spoke to a group of Pharisees, and his disciples are following him. They are going with him, and he sees this crowd coming, so he stops and he turns. And he's now addressing all these people who's coming, and he says, "If anyone comes to me." What he means by that is, he's saying, if you want to follow me, you have to be my disciple. And that is not just for the select 12 people. It is a call for everyone. The word Christian is the word we use to call who we are. It's synonymous with the word disciple. In fact, the word disciple is what is used several times in the Bible to describe who you and I are. And sadly, in the church, disciple has often been reduced to be applied to only a select group of people. Maybe the pastor or the worship leaders or your small group leaders or missionaries who are serving. And most people tend to think that's not for them. In fact, what Jesus is saying is, you're either a disciple following me, or you are not anybody who is following me. It's not just for the elite. If you want to be my disciple, the call is pretty big. You can't just be living your life however you want to live and doing the things you want to do and call yourself a disciple. In fact, many of these people were very religious people, Pharisees, who actually knew a lot about the Bible, who would do almost everything the Bible asked them to do. And so sadly, in churches today, including in our church, it's highly possible that there is a big group of people who think being a disciple means I come to church, I sing some songs on a Sunday, I give my money, and maybe I even do some service. But beyond that, in my life, in all other areas of my life, I'm not going to follow Jesus because it's just so hard. Are you kidding me? And so almost everyone thinks there is this dichotomy, 2 levels of being a Christian. There's this regular Christian level, the regular Christians who believe all the right things, who'll tell the creeds, who'll, do all the basic stuff, but they're not really excited about who Jesus is. They can even recite the right theology for you, but if you dig into their lives and see what's going on, you can see there is a gaping hole. And one of the reasons they say a lot of young people leave the church is because they see this through in their parents. What they believe, they say they believe, and how they live their lives are not as disciples. So Jesus is looking at them and he's saying, there are no two standards, guys. It's not like I have this elite 12 people who I will say are my disciples, and then there are these others who are not. There's only one standard if you want to be my disciple. Full, complete, sacrificial discipleship is the only thing you can do if you want to have a relationship with me. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and again a famous missionary in Germany, I've shared this numerous times, who lived in Nazi Germany. He was captured by the Nazis, and before that he actually lived in New York. He was ministering among African Americans back in the day in the Bronx and other neighborhoods, and then when the war started, he went back. He said, I have to go serve my people, and people tried to stop him. They said, if you go, the Nazis are going to get you, and they're going to kill you. He said, no, I can't let my church in my country suffer. I'm going to go back as a missionary to my own people, and he went back, and the Nazis got him, and he was put in a concentration camp and tortured. And in that camp, he wrote letters to his disciples, which is out as a book. Many of you can read it. It's called The Cost of Discipleship. The foreword to that book begins with the line, it says, him whom God calls, he bids him to come and die. It was sort of very prophetic of himself, because he actually died within a few months before the Allied forces could liberate him. They actually got to him. But now we think, Bonhoeffer, that's like, he's a giant, and it's not for me, man. I'm not going to be ready to die for Jesus. Don't ask me to die for Jesus. Jesus says, if you're not ready to die for me, don't call yourself a disciple. I don't need your money. I don't need your service. It's not that I need you to function. It's not that I need you to build my church. But if you want to be my disciple, I want you to go all in. And he's going to unpack for us what that all in means. So first, he begins with this dramatic, shocking statement. It's a very difficult statement if you don't understand. In verse 26, why don't we all read this together? Into the ESV, it's probably up here. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, wow. Isn't that shocking? So he says, first of all, discipleship is not optional. It's not like there's a two-tier thing, there's just one ordinary thing for everybody and then this very high thing. But he says, and if you want to get into that, you got to hate like everybody. What is he talking about? How can Jesus ask us to hate anyone? I mean, he's the one who says, love your enemies. Why is he now saying, I need to hate my own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters? Well, if we try to look at it at face value from where we are, it looks shocking. But what Jesus is talking of is something even more fundamental. In the Middle Eastern culture, back in the day and even now for several of us in some of our cultures, family is everything. It's the way our life is supposed to go. This is what everyone's life consists of. Our life revolves around our own family, our extended family. You don't disgrace your family. You don't move away from your family. In fact, you never married somebody your family didn't want. But here's what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying, look at the normal agenda of a person's life. He's saying you have to be willing to leave it all and come when I call you. If to put it in another way, he's saying, don't think you can come to me and want to be my disciple and have your own agenda for your life. That you can have your own outline of how you want your life to be, and the only thing that changes is the intellectual switch that you now believe Jesus died for me. That's it. But I'm just going to continue living the way I've always lived, with my own culture, with my own baggages, with my own lifestyle, and my own relationships, and my own dreams. He says, don't do that. And then don't try to fit me retrospectively into your life to make that life get better. No. That's using me. Don't use me like that. I'm not here just to make you a better dad, a better husband, a better mom, and all of that, though that may come as a result of it. That's not my primary mission. That's not why I'm wanting you to be my disciple. Don't even come to me just because you want a happy life or a fulfilled life. You must come to me for myself. You must be willing to say goodbye to all of your former way of life, whatever that may be. Don't come to me because I solve your problems, I'm exciting, I'm fulfilling. Come to me for myself. If you do, I will be the most awesome thing in your life. I will be the most thrilling thing you've experienced. I will be the most fulfilling thing you could ever see. But you have to come to me just for me, because I'm true. You have to come to me because I alone can give you joy and strength in all of life's situations, and only if you will make me the Lord of all areas of your lives. That's the first thing. So the question I have is, what has changed when you have come to Jesus? Have you just retrofitted your existing life and just threw Jesus in the mix? And you're using him to solve your life's problems, to make yourself lives better and smoother and happier? Then you're probably not in. You probably can't use and claim that you are a disciple. And that's the problem with the church today. Why is the church so messed up? Because it's filled with so many people, both in the pews and in the leadership, who claim to be disciples of Jesus, but haven't left anything from their past. The baggage comes in, and it messes everything up. So the first thing Jesus says is, if you have to follow me, you have to leave all. Your former allegiances, your former loves. We're going to talk more about that. Your former everything. And you're going to come and go all in. Second point he makes in this very verse, it's a deep verse. We're going to go a little deeper. He says, all in living means loving Jesus above all. Why does he use the word hate? Why should I hate my father and mother and brother and sister? If you look at some dictionaries and commentaries, they'll tell you every word has a range of meanings it can be used. And you have to figure it out from the context in which those words are used. The word hate, one of the range of that is, it can be used to refer in a context to regard something with less affection, to love something less than the other. And so it's more a comparative term where you're comparing two things and saying, I'm going to love this less than that, or I'm going to love this more than that. In Genesis 29, we read about that in the narrative. It says Jacob, he has two wives, Rachel and Leah, but he says, I love Rachel and I hate Leah. He's not hating her, he's loving one more than the other. So what Jesus is saying is, you have to love me more than your father and mother and brother and sister and every other love of your life. I have to be your supreme love, your prime love, your highest love, period. Basically, I want you to love me. And he says, look, there are all these kinds of loves. You know, C.S. Lewis has this fabulous book. If you haven't read it, you should read it. It's called Four Loves. He talks about 4 different types of loves we have as human beings. You know, phileo, friendship love. Storge, affectionate love that exists between families and even with pets. Then there is eros, the sexual love in physical relationship. And then there is agape, he calls it the divine love. And he talks about the need-based love and a gift-based love, how one love is always exercised with an expectation to get something from the other person, whereas the gift-based love is like a motherly love. When she sees there is a threat that is coming to her child, if a car is going to come and hit, she will put her body to save her child without thinking twice. So he talks about how God's love and the love of Jesus is supreme in that sense. But what Jesus is saying in applying this love dynamic to this text is, he says, look, there are all these kinds of loves. You know, the fatherly love and the motherly love is the storge, the affectionate love. And then you look at your wife, the erotic love. You look and you fall in love with someone because they look beautiful, and we're living in a very sexualized society where that defines relationships for many young people. He says, if that's what you're going after, the erotic love, no. And then you look at the child. That's another kind of love. You love your child in a different way than you love your parents. You love your children in a different way than you love your spouse. And then there are brothers and sisters, siblings kind of love. He's taking every kind of love there is. He's taking every kind of human love, sexual love, friendship love, family love, affection love, and he's saying, I want and I offer a kind of love that will make all of these other loves so pale by comparison. I don't want sentiment. I don't want just an inspirational feeling that you love me. I want a love as real and more deeper than you would love your wife or brother or father or mother or your children. The love you have for me has to transcend all. I have to be your supreme love. Like how for Jacob it was Rachel that was the supreme love in his life. You know, St. Augustine, we spoke about this in a sermon a few weeks ago, about disordered loves. Right? St. Augustine, you can read about him, by the way, here, his life story. Thank you, Beulah, for putting all these up for our kids. He wrote a book called Confessions. He says the essence, the key to a transformed character, the key to a great life, the key to forgiveness, the key to peace, the key to the kind of great heart you want is not willpower. It's not working hard. He says it's the right ordering of our loves, because our loves are all messed up. What he's saying is, what is the problem in all of these cases? Why are you so worried? When you are eaten up with a worry or a sense of failure or inferiority or a lack of confidence or cowardice or bitterness or anger, he says it's because something is more important to you, your heart, than me. That's why you're worried about it. For some of us, it could be our parents' opinion. It's so valuable, we don't want to mess with that. For some of us, it's about our career, our money, or our future. You know what Augustine says? He says, what you are going to do to get freedom, what are you going to do to get peace? You can only do 2 things. You can say, oh, all these other things, they are pathetic. I'm not going to care about pleasing my parents because they're just ridiculous. I'm not going to worry about this person who is not respecting me or not accepting me because they're just bad, and just put them down. Or you can do another thing. He says the only way you can overcome these is when your own heart and conscience and standards think that you have is you think that you love Jesus more than all of these. You just have to love God more. That's equal to hating everything else. And so when you are able to make Jesus as your supreme love because of what he has done for you, then not only will you be willing to leave everything, now you're loving Jesus so much, now you care about his mission, you care about his heart. That's what all these missionaries did around the world. What prompted, Samuel Morris from trying to reach his tribe and coming to this country? What prompted Eric Liddell to go to China and share the gospel till World War happened? Right? What prompted Amy Carmichael to come to India? She had a wonderful life here. And why did she she first went to Japan, and she was always very anxious about her future. She was thinking, how am I going to get married? What's going to be my family look like? Will I even have kids? That was killing her in anxiety. But when she was able to surrender them all to God, and God takes her to India, she ends up rescuing children who are going to be sold as temple prostitutes. And when she was dying in her later years, she had hundreds of kids who would call her as their mother, because she made Jesus as her prime love. And she wanted to go all in for this Jesus. And she cared about what Jesus cared more than what she cared about, what she thought are more important things, her future, her family, her children. And that's the kind of life. And that's what God is saying. It's not for specialist elite, these random missionaries. Everyone is called to that kind of living. It's sad, we have to now add phrases, call it radical discipleship, authentic Christian. There's just one word, just disciple, that's it. It means you're all in. You're either all in or you're all out. There's no middle ground. And that's what all the disciples did. You read the book of Acts, Stephen, when he was stoned, said, no problem, I'll go to Jesus. The very person who was standing at his feet, Paul, was captivated by that. And he ends up literally going all around the world. And he lists all the pains that he had to undergo, the shipwrecks, the floggings, the imprisonment, and all the letters that we have. Most of them were those he wrote from jail. And yet he says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. That should be the experience of every average Christian when we live all in for Jesus. All in living requires loving Jesus. You can only do, it's motivated by love and nothing else. Love and nothing else. Next, all in living means trusting Jesus in all. Now, this is the verse 27. These verses are very hard if you just read them by face value. And then you'll end up thinking wrong things. I have to go hate my dad and mom and brother. No, you have to hate everything you put your faith on to support yourself. And now he says, verse 27, let's read that together. Whoever cross. All right, wow. He's just amping it up. He's just taking it one level more than the other. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. What does taking up the cross mean? We don't live in times where the cross is something that's happening around, and we know how crosses become the defining symbol of Christianity, right? But in the Roman times, it was a capital punishment instituted by the Romans to get rid of the worst criminals in the society. If you can think of it, something like the Alcatraz prison that we have here. It's not functional anymore. The worst prisoners were thrown there, right? So the cross was meant for something like that. But why is Jesus telling, if you are my disciple, you have to pick up your cross? Henry Sweet is a commentator, and he puts it this way. He says, to take up the cross can mean only one thing. It must mean to put yourself in the place of a condemned criminal. Wow. Why would I do that? Why would Jesus say, if I have to follow him, I have to put myself in the place of a condemned criminal? What are we even talking about? And what condemned criminal am I supposed to be putting myself in the place of? What condemned criminal should I identify myself with to follow Jesus? You know who that condemned criminal is that he wants you to identify? It's him. Because Jesus took upon the sin of the entire world on the cross. That's the essence of discipleship. This is what Jesus is saying. The essence of discipleship is to realize, when I died, you died with me. That you identify with me. That you're not trying to earn God's love through your own efforts. You're not going to go out there and be this missionary because that's going to give you some brownie points when you go to heaven, or that's going to make your life here better. You're going to do it because you see me on the cross instead of you. That I swapped your place, but you have to take that cross. You have to die with me and let my life flow in you and give you new life. Until then, unless you're trying hard by yourself every single time and you're going to fail, you're not going to get it. Colossians 3, Paul says, set your hearts on things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God, for you died and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. It says you died. The minute we believe in Jesus, we died on the cross with him. We were buried with him. It means if God looks at you and me right now, it's as if I have paid all the penalty for every cent of my sin. So if you're a person who believes in Jesus and you start to beat yourself up because of your sin, because you feel so guilty, you don't have to. You know why? Because as far as God is concerned, you've already been beaten. You've already been flogged. You've already been crowned with thorns. You've been speared. You've been nailed. You've paid it all. Your life is hid with Christ. So I need to take this cross daily because every day I will mess up. Every day I will sin. Every day I will fall short of God's glory. I need to repent. I need to confess. I need to go to the cross. And I need to hide myself in Jesus. And then out of the gratitude of that, I now want to go and live for Jesus. Not to earn my way to God, but because I have taken up the cross. And that's what Paul says in one of my favorite verses, Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in my body, I live by faith in the Son of God who died for me and gave himself for me. All in living means trusting Jesus in taking my cross daily for my salvation, in being remembered of the cost that was paid for myself, of the criminal that I have replaced myself with, that I should have been the one carrying that cross, but Jesus carried it for me. And when I remember that, it will kindle in me the love and the joy and the desire to live and go all in for this Jesus. Next, all in living means following Jesus in all. Verse 27, he says this, and then he lists 3 parables. He says, whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. And he gives 3 parables. 2 of them are explicit. Third one is just the message of the parable. There's these two parables he gives from verse 28 to 33. He talks about someone trying to build a tower once, and he's sitting down and counting the cost. So there's this project that needs to be done, and this person is thinking about it. And there is also a challenge that is presented that if that doesn't go through or if it fails, then the consequence is going to be a shame and mockery. Then he talks about a king who goes for war, and he is sort of understaffed. He has only 10,000 people, and the enemy has 20,000 soldiers, and he's sitting down and thinking, what are the odds of me winning against the enemy? And if I have to, the consequence is a probable defeat, and at least I should go and try to make peace. Why does, again, this makes it more harder? What is Jesus trying to do here? Why is he bringing these two examples? And Luke is saying this because some of the people who were following Jesus were rich landowners and military people. So he's using an analogy to capture their attention, to tell them something very important. It highlights the importance of thinking before making a decision. What he talks about is same thing like we have been speaking before. You put your trust on a system that you think is going to help you carry through, but it may not. It will fail. And you have to come back to me and surrender yourself to me. In both these cases, the repercussions of failure are tragic. One means mockery, the other means surrender. And so, by extrapolating it, Jesus insists that all those things that you think are your assets, such as your network of family or friends, or the money and the wealth you have, or the power in your soldiers and the might you think that you have, are not sufficient foundations to follow me. They're not going to help you. They're not going to enable you to be my disciple. The only thing that you're going to need is to trust me and enter into the mission I'm going to call you. So what happens when I put my faith in Jesus and I say, Jesus, I want to be your disciple? Well, Jesus is going to give you a new life mission. He's going to give you a mission from his heart that is going to be planted in your heart. And it might look too big. You may feel, I don't think I'm capable of handling it. If you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, every single time God calls someone, they felt that they were not ready for the mission. And it's through all those inadequacies that God prepares them. Joseph has this great gift. He can interpret dreams. Spends most of his time being sold out by his brothers, falsely accused in jail, has no clue what he's going to do, but God is preparing him for a great mission to preserve the nation of Israel in a time of famine. So his redemptive plans can go on. Moses grows up in the palace. He goes to the Harvard and the best military academy, and he thinks he's ready, and he's not. And then when finally God humbles him and tells him, I want you to go, by that time, he has come to this point. He realizes his strength, his military knowledge, and his ability is not going to help him accomplish God's mission to redeem people from Israel. He says, I don't think I can do it, God. And that's when God says, now you're ready, because you have now realized if you want to accomplish this mission that I want you to do in your life, you cannot do it relying on your strength, your smartness, your ability. It has to be me. And you're going to do nothing. You're not going to wage war. You're going to just throw your stuff. The Red Sea is going to split, so you will see my power. That's what he's saying with all these two analogies. You have to get to that point. When you want to go and live all in for me, I will equip you. I will show you where to go. You don't have to worry about the money you need, the funds you need to raise, the skills you need to. I will equip you, and I will send you. You just have to follow me. That's what all in living means. That's what all these people did who wanted to go and follow Jesus. That we will go where he wants us to go, do what he wants us to do, period. Lastly, all in living means transforming all. And he uses this analogy of the salt. He closes the previous parables in verse 33. He says, so therefore anyone who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. That's what I was trying to explain. This last one is verse 34. It says, salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is of no use either for the soil or the manure pile. It is thrown away. He who has ears, let him hear. How can salt lose its saltiness? Have any of you kids here had salt that was not salty? Have you? No, right? It's hard to imagine that. But apparently in Palestine, where there is a place where they extract salt from crystals, that, some of you even now, if you come to near my place in Newark, they used to, I don't know what it's called, harvesting salt or extracting salt from the seawater, where they'll pump ocean water and it dries, and then a pile of salt crystals are formed. So there's a place in Palestine where they have these salt crystals, but then over rain, it just leaches away all the salt from the crystals, and it only looks like salt, but it actually doesn't have the saltiness. So when someone looks at it, it's like, wow, this is salt, but you start eating it, it does nothing. So he says, but if a salt actually works, it's small, it's tiny like a powder, but if you try to eat any food without salt, it's tasteless. Salt makes all the difference. It can just be a pinch of salt you throw into your favorite dish, the whole thing comes alive. So he says, that's how I want my disciples to be. When you live like this in the world, when you go all in, leaving everything, loving me, trusting not in your strength but in the finished work of Jesus on the cross, and going wherever he has called you to do, you're going to be transforming this world. It could be in your own place of work. It could be in your school. It could be in your neighborhood. It could be where you live. You're now, as a salt, you're permeating through all spheres of society and bringing about change. That's what they showed even in our skit during the VBS. Some of you are going to be called to go to some different countries. Silicon Valley, we have people from 90 countries living right here, and some of you are friends with them. Last week I had a guest who showed up. They came into our church, and she said she's from Alexandria, Egypt, and they were looking for a church. The world is coming to us right here. And so God can use you and me to be missionaries locally and globally at this time, but he wants us to go all in. And he says the corollary is, if you're living your life just to make bread and butter, just to pay your bills, just to pay off your debts, and to live on a day-to-day life where you're actually not affecting any change, being of help or usefulness to anyone other than yourself, you're like the saltless salt. And that's useless. It can only be thrown and is not good for anything. And that's what he calls. It's a very short but a loaded passage, isn't it? Jesus wants us to go all in. Are you ready? And there is no two-tier disciples. You're either all in or you're all out. And if there are areas in your life that are holding you back, if maybe you're putting your faith, you say I love Jesus, but your faith's really in your job, that's where you get your security from, or in the reserves of finances, or you think my children's life's going to be safe if only they have all these things in place, you're not really trusting Jesus. You're trusting yourself, trusting everything. Your loves are still disordered and they need to be reordered. And if you're still trying to not pick up your cross daily, going to the cross and seeking forgiveness and confession and being united with the death of Christ and letting the resurrected power of Christ flow, we're not all in. The world is broken. There is so many needs around the world. People are dying. There is poverty. There is war. There is sex trafficking and slavery and so many brokenness. That's what God called each one of these people to go to make a difference. What is God calling you to? So at this time, I want to open it up for our kids who are part of VBS. I know you guys learned a lot through Pastor Joseph Kim, who beautifully shared what the gospel is and what God's mission is. You did a lot of crafts that reminded you of that. You even your meal times and all of that, you heard this call for mission. So you all will have a card. Who has a card? Lift it up. Show me if you have that card. All right. And you just wrote down a country that God is putting your heart in, right? If anyone doesn't have a card, need one, raise your hand. Some of our friends will come and pass on the card to you. And if God has been speaking to you these past 2 days, and some of you have already made a decision for Jesus, you have written your cards and they're all on this cross, I want to pray specially for you. And today in this all-in card, here's the last thing you can write. We are going to go into a time of prayer, saying, Jesus, I want to go all in for you because I love you, I trust you, I thank you for dying for me, and wherever you call, I will go. If you want to make that decision, I want you to write that down. And you can come and drop your card here and stand here. As a church, we're all going to pray for you. You may not know which country it is. You may not know where you have to, but you're just saying, I am ready, Jesus. I'm not going to trust in all the things that this world has or my friends have or other families have. I'm just going to come and go all in for you.